friends. Welcome to another mental health chat video. Today I'm going to talk about struggling with body image. I do want to make one thing clear before I get started. I'm not talking about eating disorders today. I don't really know a lot about kind of the psychology of eating disorders. I've never personally had an eating disorder, so it's just not something I really feel comfortable speaking on. But I do think that even if you don't have some sort of eating disorder, that the way you perceive how you look physically and your sense of self in that respect has a huge effect on your mental health. Because if you guys are anything like me, if I have a day that I start out that I don't feel good about how I look, or I can't find something to wear that I feel like I look okay in, or even if the scale says something that doesn't make me happy, it really kind of sets a negative tone for the day for me. So I just kind of wanted to talk about my personal experience and my personal progress when it comes to my relationship with my body. The first time I really remember becoming hyper aware of feeling insecure with how I looked was when I was in 8th grade. 8th grade overall was a very challenging year for me. I was bullied a lot and just overall had a really hard time that year. We had moved to a new place, so I had started a new school, and I think middle school is hard for anybody, but I had a very hard time with it, and looking back now, it's pretty clear that that was probably the first major episode of depression that I had. Of course, we didn't know at the time that's what it was, but a lot of the symptoms make a lot of sense for how I was at that particular period of my life. But I do remember 8th grade feeling very insecure about how I looked. I had the same jacket that I wore every single day to kind of cover up my body. I think the biggest perception that I've always had about my body is that I'm very bottom heavy, so a lot of butt and thighs. And that was kind of the first time that I became very aware of that and feeling self-conscious about it. And throughout high school, I think just like anybody, I had things about my body that I was insecure about, and I don't remember ever wanting to lose weight per se, but I do remember just wishing that I had more toned thighs and would try and do these thigh workouts to slim down, and felt really insecure in bathing suits. Even to this day, I still really won't wear a bathing suit that doesn't have the skirt on the bottom. And I know that there were phases that I felt more insecure than others, because I distinctly remember the only time that I have ever made myself throw up was after dinner, and I just felt so bad about what I had eaten and full, and I was like, I'm just gonna make myself throw up, and it was miserable. So it only took one time of that to decide I was never doing that again. Freshman year of college, I ended up losing probably 15 or 20 pounds not trying to, just simply from stress and anxiety and depression. And that's actually one of the things that led me to officially being diagnosed with anxiety and depression, is because I had gone to the doctor because I wasn't feeling well about something else, and he noticed how much weight I had lost and started asking me some questions and ended up sending me to the mental health center, and the rest is history, I guess. But I will say it was weight that I didn't really need to lose, so looking back now at pictures from that time period, I can tell that I very obviously am too skinny. At the time, I didn't really think much of it. And honestly, it was almost kind of a compliment to me when people would say how thin I was. Even if they weren't saying it in any kind of complimentary way, it was not oh, you look really great. It was oh, you look really thin. Even if it wasn't a compliment, I still thought that it was a good thing, because I guess that's what we're trained to want to hear. But then going forward, I started taking an anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I started taking birth control, and those two things definitely have a side effect of weight gain. So I started putting on the weight back that I had lost and then some. And I think I was at a pretty healthy weight through the end of college. When I got married, I feel like I was at a good weight and I was happy with how I looked. And now that's been almost 9 years ago. And it's interesting that since that time, I think has been the most that I've struggled with my body and being happy about it. So for whatever reason, I started gaining weight slowly, but in a way that added up. So like, even if you only gain 5 to 10 pounds a year, over the course of a couple years, that's pretty significant. Fast forward a couple years to 2015, and I had gotten to what is now my highest weight. And I'm not gonna share the number because I don't want anyone to think that it is the number that I weighed that I was unhappy with. I'm one of those people that when I have shared how much I weigh, people are surprised because of the way I carry it. I think that I probably look like I weigh less than I do, than what the scale says. Physically, I didn't feel good. Lack of energy, and just overall being really unhappy with seeing myself in photographs and videos. And I see myself in videos a lot because, hi, I make YouTube videos, so I have to look at my stupid face pretty often. It was definitely a noticeable difference. In the fall of, I think, 2015, I went on kind of an extreme meal replacement diet for about 5 to 6 months. It was miserable. Every second of it was miserable. It was just basically eating stuff that tasted terrible, and then you got to have like one meal a day that was vegetables and protein, but it was so depressing. But it worked, and I ended up losing about 25 pounds. And once again, I'm not gonna really talk about the diet meal program that I used, just because diets are so weird in that what works for one person doesn't do anything for another person. And with this particular one, I don't even know if it was really that healthy. We'll just say that it was a fluky thing, and I probably partly starved myself in order to lose that weight. But I still wasn't at the kind of what I had in my head, and probably what I still have in my head as where I would be happy. So if I only saw this number when I got on the scale, then I would be happy. One thing that I started incorporating as somebody who had never done any kind of exercise, played softball briefly for a couple of years when I was younger, but other than that, never any kind of regular exercise in my adult life. I started incorporating yoga into my kind of weekly routine, and I saw maybe a little bit of a difference, but not a ton. I ended up doing kind of one more big diet push and lost another 10 pounds or so. So overall, I'm about 35 pounds less than I was at my heaviest presently. But this is where it gets kind of extra frustrating for me, because about a year ago, I decided to kick up my physical activity, and I started doing a kickboxing workout, usually 2 to 3 times a week. And my eating habits aren't great, and I'll be the first one to admit that, but they're also not terrible. So I figured hopefully I would see a little bit of a difference if I started doing more exercise. What I will tell you is I weigh literally the exact same as I did a year ago before I started doing the kickboxing workouts. And I can't even begin to express to you how frustrating that has been, how much it has taken a toll on, I don't want to say my happiness, but it's almost become a little bit of an obsession. I even ended up going to the doctor probably 3 or 4 months ago and said, something must be wrong with my health because I have done all of these things and tried all of these things to lose weight and I can't. So clearly it must be something else. So she did a bunch of blood work, and it came back and she said, listen, every single one of these numbers from your blood work is better from the last time you did blood work before you started exercising like this. So even if you don't see a change on the scale, you are healthier than you were a year ago. And so that has been something that I've tried to come back to, because I still get really frustrated and really irritated at the fact that I have put a lot of effort into something and haven't seen the results that I want to, because I think that's frustrating for anything that a person tries to do. But I try and come back to the fact that, like, I'm healthy, and that is the most important thing. And you know, I'd rather be a little thick and healthy than thin and unhealthy. So I guess my conclusion is that I would love to be able to sit here and be one of those super body positive people and talk about how, like, you have to love yourself and everybody is beautiful and all of that wonderful stuff that you see on Instagram. But that's not my reality. But I think, and I don't mean this to sound arrogant, but I think I represent probably the average person's relationship and struggle with their body. It's neither been super healthy nor super unhealthy. It's just very much in the middle. And I had this moment recently where I realized that I could start at my toes and I could pick out something that I wish that I could change or that I didn't like about every single part of me up into my roots that are going gray on my head. And once I realized that, I thought, how sad. When did this become my inner dialogue? When did I sit here? And it's so, like, that's the worst thing about it, is it's not even a conscious thing anymore. Like, I'll just see one of the things that I wish that I could change, and just, it's not even like an active thought, it's just a passive thought running through of like, God, I wish I could fix that. And what a sad thing that the things that I think about myself that are negative seem to come up in my brain more than the things that I'm really happy with. And we can sit here and say that it's a societal problem and that, you know, it's the women on magazines and Photoshop and Instagram and social media. Like, there's so many things that we can blame it on, and who knows kind of where it stems from. But it just seems to be a problem that keeps compounding in on itself. I work in an office with a lot of women, and again, I had a moment of being like, the number of minutes a day that we spend talking about diets and exercise and, you know, even like Botox and plastic surgery and just things having to do with our physical appearance is unbelievable. And a lot of these women I look at and I'm like, if I looked the way you did, I would be happy. I don't understand why you're so unhappy. And that's the thing to remember too, is that the people that you look at and think like, man, if I looked like that, I wouldn't change anything. They have their own list from head to toe of things that they would want to change about themselves. I think it's a rare person that reaches a point being like, I am perfectly happy with how I look and I don't want to change a thing. I think it's probably important for us to remember that we're kind of all in this together. We shouldn't be so focused on these things, but I don't know how to tell you how to not be. I just want you to know, if this is something that you're having a hard time with and you're struggling with feeling insecure about your body and how you look, just know that you're not alone. I hope that one day I'll reach the point where I don't feel guilty right after eating something that I was excited about 10 minutes ago, or that I'm not weighing myself every day. I hope that I get to that point. And until I do, I just keep trying to focus on positive things and the differences that I see in my body from doing these workouts, because I know that I'm stronger and I know that I'm healthier, and trying to get to the point where that can be enough. If you don't feel like you're at a point where you're good enough, like, I hope that you can get to that point, because that is what I am striving for. Let me know in the comments if there are other topics that you want me to cover for mental health chat, and otherwise, I will see you later. Bye.